everyone, I hope you're well. If you're a subscriber, you will know that I have just finished a year's working holiday visa in Australia. Unfortunately, I couldn't get my second year holiday visa, but that's another story. So in this video, I just thought I'd share with you basically all there is to know about Australian working holiday visas. So the first thing you're going to want to know is about getting the visa. If you are 18 to 31 years old, do not have any children that depend on you, do not have any criminal convictions, are from one of the countries which is eligible, UK you're fine, and do not have any crazy diseases, you should not have any trouble applying for your working holiday visa. It costs around 420 Australian dollars, which is about 210 pounds. I don't actually know if that's gone up since I checked. Mine took around 48 hours to process, but you're supposed to allow up to 4 weeks. Make sure that once you have been granted your Australian working holiday visa, that you do turn up in Australia within 12 months, because if you don't, then it will expire and you will never be able to apply for one again. Okay, so now what does the visa mean and what does it give you? It means that you can work 12 months anywhere in Australia, but you can only work for one company 6 months at a time. The visa starts the day you arrive in Australia after having your application accepted, and you can leave and enter the country as many times as you want within that 12 months. Okay, so there are a few things that you need to think about before you leave. It states on the immigration website that you need to have at least 5,000 Australian dollars in your bank account. They believe this is the amount of money that will keep you stable until you find a job. Obviously, if you want to do some travelling before you start working, then you may want to consider having more money than that in your bank account. Make sure that you have your phone unlocked so that you can buy a SIM when you get here. You're going to be working in Australia, so make sure you have an up-to-date CV on a USB or online. And as with travelling anywhere, you need to let your bank know that you're going to be in Australia so that when you try and withdraw money, they're not going to try and block your card. Are you going to bring a suitcase or a backpack? I always find a backpack is preferable, because even if it isn't the original plan, if you want to head on to countries like Southeast Asia afterwards, you're definitely going to want a backpack as opposed to a suitcase. However, if you know that you're just going to be staying in the sort of westernized countries like Australia and maybe New Zealand, then I think a suitcase is fine. You're going to need travel insurance. I get asked a lot about what the best backpacker travel insurance is, and honestly, I'm not massively clued up about it, which is why I've never made a video about it. I don't want to start preaching and recommending something that I'm not confident about. What I do know is that I've heard great things from several backpackers and forums about World Nomads as travel backpacker insurance, and so I'll link them below. To get to Australia, you are going to have to fly on a plane. The cheapest months to supposedly fly to Australia are April, May, June, and November. I have not found an airline which is consistently the cheapest. I don't even think there's a specific city which is always the cheapest either. So I suggest just visiting Skyscanner or Momondo. I personally prefer Skyscanner, because if you're flexible, you can do a really good search where you can literally just search UK to Australia, anywhere in Australia, and then you can even select the cheapest month to do it, so it will literally give you the cheapest flight possible. I suggest getting a one-way flight to allow yourself full flexibility. However, just make sure that whatever happens, you always have 1,500 Australian dollars in your bank account so that you can guarantee that you'll be able to fly home if need be. Next thing you're going to need to think about is accommodation. Whenever you arrive in any new country off of a plane, you should always have your first few nights accommodation booked. It relieves stress, you can explore whatever place you've just landed in, and it also allows you enough time to decide whether you then want to move on or to stay there longer. Okay, so now what do you do when you arrive? There are a few things that you need to sort out. Your tax file number, you are going to need this for when you get a job. You can apply online, literally just Google Australian tax file number and follow the instructions. You're going to need an Australian bank account. I'm with Commonwealth and I really recommend them. You're also going to want an Australian phone number, especially if you're going to be applying for jobs. I'm with Vodafone, but other popular networks are Telstra and Optus. And you're also going to want to get a MEDICARE card, which will allow you to go to the doctors for free. Again, this is another one you can apply online for. Just Google Australian MEDICARE card and follow the instructions. Even if you're planning on traveling before you start working, it is worth getting these things as soon as you arrive, because when it's done, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore. So then you're going to be thinking about getting a job and what your job options are. So firstly, that's what I did, and that is to go for temp work. You can just Google the relevant recruitment agencies in the city or town that you are in and register to as many as possible. If you are wanting to do bar work, then you need an RSA to serve alcohol. So search for that online, and then you go and have like a day's worth of training, you get your certification, and it means that you are legal to serve alcohol in Australia. You can obviously hand your CV into shops and do retail work. There's Gumtree, which you can apply for jobs on. Obviously with Gumtree, just always be careful careful. It's not always the safest of websites, but there can be some great stuff on there. There's a company called Workers Wanted, which is what I got my regional work through. They were just at a travel desk as a part of one of the hostels. I think they have this all throughout Australia, but they also have other companies as well, basically just dedicated to helping backpackers get jobs. You do have to pay them a fee, but if you're really struggling to get work or if you're just extremely lazy, then you can go to them and they'll help you out. And also there's working for accommodation, where you work in a hostel and then in return you get free accommodation, and sometimes you get free food and free Wi-Fi as well, or whatever the deal is. You could be working on reception like I did, or you could be housekeeping or just bed making. Sometimes there's just cleaning jobs or working in the bar next door. WFA work varies massively from hostel to hostel. When you are employed in a new job, you will have to fill out a tax declaration. You will be asked if you are an Australian resident for tax purposes, and this was a question that I always struggled with. However, I have done my research and the immigration website states if you are visiting Australia for more than 6 months and for most of that time you are travelling and working in various locations around Australia, you are generally not an Australian resident for tax purposes. That description tends to be what most people on a working holiday visa are, and so if that is you, no, you are not an Australian resident for tax purposes. So you've been in Australia for a bit now, perhaps you've found a job, perhaps you've just found a city that you really like and you want to stay there for a little bit long term. You're going to start thinking about long-term accommodation. On the whole, renting an apartment is cheaper than living in a hostel, or at least better value for money sort of thing. So it may be the same price, but renting in your own apartment, you may have your own room. The best website for finding an apartment to rent is flatmates.com. I'll link it below. It is easier to find a flat share when you are searching by yourself, but it definitely is still possible if you are in a group as well. If that's not for you, it's not uncommon to actually live in a hostel. Many hostels have deals for people who stay long term, and it's always guaranteed to be social as well. And like I said, there are always opportunities for work for accommodation in hostels, so if you can bag yourself a WFA job, it will save you heaps. So what about a second year working holiday visa? In Australia, you are required to do 3 months regional work within your first year to be allowed to apply for a second year working holiday visa. A lot of people like to do this work as soon as they arrive in the country, but you can do it at any time in the year. Backpackers most typically work on farms, and you can find this work on Gumtree, or like I said before, they have agencies in a lot of the travel desks at hostels, which are specifically designed to help backpackers find their regional work. You do have to be careful because there are a lot of scams and exploitation that can happen. I'll link below Ali from Psycho Traveller's video on this because she knows much more about it than I do. Volunteering or woofing is no longer allowed, and you must provide payslips as evidence for your regional work. You do hear stories of some people just not doing the work, using a random ABN number and sailing right on through to their second year, no questions asked. It is possible, but if you get investigated and have to provide evidence, and there's a 1 in 5 chance that you will be investigated, then you are majorly screwed and you will probably never be allowed in Australia again. There are companies like STA Travel which help you with all of this from start to finish, but they do cost money, and honestly, if you have half a brain on you, it's really money not worth spending because you can do all of this yourself. Literally, you just have to do what I just told you and you're good. The benefits of going through companies like that and paying extra, I guess, is that sometimes they do group the travellers together who are all part of the same program, and I guess that's a good way of meeting people. And also, if you really just can't think for yourself, they will hold your hand the whole way. But honestly, I'm worried for you travelling to the other side of the world if you can't sort a few things out by yourself. I'm not bashing STA Travel in any way at all. I absolutely love them. I've booked so many flights through them and I'd recommend them to all backpackers. This is just my personal opinion specifically on the starter packs. Right, I really hope I've covered everything and have cleared up any questions that you may have had about an Australian working holiday visa. I will link in the description relevant and useful stuff that supports everything that I have just said. Also, as I know all too well, immigration does like to change their rules sometimes, so it definitely is worth checking out some of the links below if it is about immigration rules, because it may well have changed from whatever I have said in this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe and follow me on Instagram and Twitter and Snapchat and Pinterest and Snapchat. Did I say Snapchat? I don't know what the next video is going to be, but I'll see you then. Bye!